Hey, what's going on, bro? Okay, so in order to diagnose the issue, I need you to give me as much detail as possible of what's wrong with the code. I want you to be able to diagnose it down to exactly which line of code is causing the issue. I'm going to show you my diagnostic techniques. Now, in order for you to understand how I would diagnose something, I need you to understand how I represent voids and methods in my head. And then you understand my diagnostic techniques, my diagnostic techniques. Okay, so on the screen now you see three voids, right? Inside of junk class or whatever. So imagine when this junk class is ran, what I want to do is add some numbers and then show them to the user, right? So, and don't worry about, let's just pretend like this void was called by something. We press a button or something. That's how it was called. Okay, magically this was called. How do I get from here to here? Of course. I mean, it's simple. We already know. This is self-explanatory, right? So we do, if you want the number void, whoever calls it, I don't know who's going to call it, but let's just say push a button, it was called. And we want that to run the add void. What we do is this, right? So now when he's called, he calls that. Now this one is ran, all his stuff is done. We want him to call this void, so we just do this. Now he called this void. Alright, simple as that. But let's see real code. I mean, not real code, but like how would it look if we really wanted to add some numbers up? Well, first we make the integers up. Integer is called number 1, right? The first number to add. And let's just make it 0 for the moment. And then let's make another integer for the second number to add. Let's turn off that sound because it's really making me upset. Okay, I'm going to do this as quick as possible. So number 2. Okay, and then we want to call this void. That void is going to actually do the adding. This just sets up the numbers here. Okay, so now let's actually do the adding in here. So we want to take number 1 and make it number 2. Now since these are not global variables, they're within inside of this void. How can he manipulate it? Well, he has to be passed through and through here. Usually if you want to use global variables that anybody can use, we will put these, create these in the beginning of the class. Okay, so let's I mean, and you probably already know all of this, so I'm just saying stuff, but this is just how I visualize it. So in here I say, listen, he can't be called without two integers inside of him. But before I do that, let's say let's do that anyway. So he needs, when he's called, he wants an integer, and I'm going to name the integer n1, and then another integer, and n2. Okay, so now he can't be called without putting two integers inside of him. Now what does he do with those two integers? He's going to add them together, right? So we're going to make a new integer called holder, H-O-L-D-E-R, because this is the one we're going to display. And let's just say it equals 0 to start off with. And now the actual logic is done where we add something up. So holder equals n1 plus n2, right? So now whatever is, when he was called, whenever it's put inside of him, is added up. Now we want to display that to the user. So in a display method, we want to do like a text view. Text, wait, hold on, TEXTVIEW, right? Text view, is that capital T? And then I think the V is capital too, I'm not sure. I usually just copy and paste it from somewhere. Text view, and it is called view, V, forget it. And it equals, and I think we do find view by ID and all of that. Let me find some of that code somewhere. I'm getting too deep. You already know how to set a text view. Let's just pretend like we did that already. So text view, find by ID, blah blah blah. I'd rather show you. Let me try to find a text, something to. And here we go. Find view, and this is a text view. Let's import. It wants to import the text view. You can skip past all this. This is all self-explanatory. And R, that find that text view that we're setting, it would be an XML, whatever we called it. But let's just say that's correct, right? All right. So pretend like this isn't there, right? Then we want to do view dot set text view, set text, right? Okay. Now what are we going to set it? The go. The number is, put the equal sign, and then plus, and then we want to put the number here. So we'll say int, and then call it the n. Okay. Alright, so now if this text view was real, we'll show this, right? But forget about this. You know, these don't exist. This is, I erased them, I deleted them. All these are good pieces of code, right? This doesn't depend on anything else, you know? They don't rely on each other or anything, you know? It's just never called, because nobody ever calls them. Okay, so now we get errors, right? Our first one that was called by some magic, whatever called, I don't know, pressing a button that was called him. And then, it says, hey, when you call this add void, it needs 2 integers. So what I want to do is stuff these two integers in there when I call it. Okay. All right. Bam. So now I got a problem here. He wants an integer when he get called. Okay. So let's put the holder integer in there. All right. So one void actually sets up the numbers for us, which calls another void. That void actually adds the numbers up. Then the other void is what's in charge for showing it to the user. None of them are relying on each other. Each one are just separate pieces of code that can be called from anywhere or ran from anywhere. It's just in this particular branch that we created, they won't get ran without each other running each other. You know, this one has to be ran by our global whatever. But then when he's called, then he calls that, then he calls that. Well, let's say we ran this and there was an error. I'm going to create an error here. Well, first we got to have numbers to add up. So let's say this equals 75, and then this equals, 100, whatever. So it'd be 145. Okay, so let's say we had an error, and how would I create an error here? I don't know. Let's make this text for some. No, it's too easy. Let's say, I don't know how it calls an error. It's too simple. Well, let's say instead of putting text in here, I put a instead of putting an integer here, I put text. Let's say, hey, I want an int. Okay, so let's say Eclipse didn't tell us exactly what's wrong with the code here. So this is where the error is at. How do we find this error, right? So the first way I would diagnose it is I know that these are the voids that are intended to run that lets me see the number shown on the screen. So let's say, when I hit the button that says show me number or whatever, and then it crashes, right? So to diagnose it, what I would do is first, this is the first void that runs, I would turn it off. Well, how do you turn it off? Well, I still want it to be called, but I don't want it to do anything. So I would just have all the code inside of there turned off, right? Alright, so now this is just, notes, so it's not real. It's not code. It's not going to do anything. So now what I do is open up the app, run it, hit the number button, and then have this code run. Obviously, this code is not going to crash. Bam, the app's going to work. Why? Because this code does nothing. So you run it, bam, it does nothing. Subsequently, this never runs, and this never runs. We know the error is here. Hint, hint, wink, wink, we know the error is here, but I'm just saying if we didn't know what the error was. Okay, so now we determined that by turning this off, we determined there's no other issue with the app. There's no, memory leak somewhere, or some random code that's running that we don't know about or something, at least not yet. We hit the number button, nothing happened, nothing is supposed to happen, but nothing crashed. That's the most important thing. We start from a good state. So we know that running this and running the code inside of here makes it crash. Awesome. Now I undo this, right? And then I let the code run its logic, but don't run any voids, right? Don't run any methods. Let's turn off this method, and that means that these voids don't run. This one doesn't run because it doesn't get a chance to call that one and doesn't call that one, So my logic still runs, or the little bit of logic I got here still runs, but the void doesn't get run. So now I can diagnose this. Go ahead and run the app, hit go. Does it crash? Of course, it's not going to do anything, but that's good. Did it not crash, right? It still crashed? Oh, there's a problem with my logic. There's nothing wrong with this, or maybe something wrong with this void too, but there's something wrong with this. These are only 2 lines that run. There's something wrong with them. So then we figure out what we can do to fix those. But we run it now, and of course this code would work because there's no errors, right? Cool. So then I turn this back on, and I don't need to run a test because we already know everything's going to work as normal and it's going to crash because we know it crashed. So now go into this void. This is all gravy. Everything worked. We test everything. Now I'll go here and turn everything off in here. My fault, I dropped my microphone there. So I turn everything off inside of this void and run the code. This runs as normal. This runs but doesn't do anything. Obviously this doesn't get ran, right? So cool. I run that, nothing crashes. This never get run, so I don't know if there's an error. Maybe an error down here somewhere, I don't know, but he never ran. Okay, cool. So now I turn it back on. Again, that proves to me that all of his logic, everything he did was right. Alright, so now let me look in here and see any voids that he runs. Uh-oh. And yes, there is one here. So let's turn that off. Let's pretend like we don't know there's an error here, right? And then we let the logic run. This has real logic because it pluses something together. So now let me run the code now. Now again, if it crashes now, there's something wrong with this logic here. You know, did it get the right numbers? Did it get numbers when these were called? You know, here, whatever. I don't know, but we have to diagnose it and figure it out. Okay, so we run the app now. This still doesn't get called because it's not called here, and the app works. Cool. So now we run the code now. Well, we don't run it. Let's call this void and then turn everything off inside of here. Okay, and so now this is still going to call this, but the code in here that doesn't run, right? I run this and it still crashes. What? You know, we know that this is the issue here, stuff in the real issue. We know the issue is that we put a string in here when it's supposed to be an integer. Of course, Eclipse won't let us run this, but I'm just saying if we could. Okay, so we run this, and none of this code get run, but we still crashes. Just calling this void made us crash. Bam, there's an issue with calling this void. We call it wrong. Something we did when we called this void made it crash. We figured out the issue. So then how would I diagnose this as well? Well, the only thing I do when I call this void is stuff something in there. And I thought it was supposed to be a number, a string. I put a string in there. That's what I'm supposed to stuff in there. I think that's what I was supposed to do. So what I do is stuff something else in there. Maybe I was supposed to put a void in there. So I'll try to put void. That makes no sense. So I'll put void. Okay, then run this and see what happens. Still crashes. I'm not putting something right in there, right? So what am I supposed to put in there? This is how we diagnose it. This never runs. I never show it to the user yet. I don't run none of this code because just calling this is what's causing my issue. All right, maybe I'm supposed to put what other variables exist. I know that when you call a method, you gotta put a variable in there. Maybe I'm supposed to put a text view in there because I think about logic. I'm supposed to display this to the user. Maybe they want me to put a text view in there. So what I want to do is create a text view. So I know how to make text views, and then set the text view up to something, right? And for now, I want to set it to nothing. So let's just make it blank, right? Okay. And now I'm going to take my V, that's what I called it, and stuff it in here. I thought maybe I got to put a text view in there, right? So I made me a text view, and I'm putting it in there when I call this display void. Try that, app still crashes. Jesus Louise, what do I got to put in here to not let this crash so I can call it? Well, maybe he wants an integer. Maybe it means I got to put the integer in there to make this run properly. Let me go ahead and use this holder integer I was using and put this in here. And get rid of this text view stuff here. Okay, now let me run this and see if it crashes. Oh my goodness, it didn't crash. Let me try to put my own integer in there, 55, or something like that, an integer. Run it now. It didn't crash again. Yes, integers. I'm supposed to put integers inside of here. Duh. Okay, now I'll put that back in there. Undo this logic here because I can run the void now. Now run the app. Bam, no crashes. Why? This line was our issue. Nothing inside of here was the issue. Nothing up there was the issue. This was the issue. And the issue was I was putting a freaking string in here. When you call a display void, you're supposed to put integers in there. Oh, when you call this display void, it wants an integer. Okay. I didn't know that. Right. Now we know. So that's my diagnostic technique, right? So let's do that with the app now. Save what we got. Let's do that with the app. So here, let's look at my diagram real. Okay, let's look at my diagram. How does this work? Don't pay no attention to my crappy graphics, but you have your phone here and you're selecting the images, right? You have the image view. You click, you touch the image, and it runs a couple of voids, and then the user can see the image on the screen. So it goes from touching the image to on the screen, right? And just like we had in our code, right here, we had you hit number void, it shows it to the user. Well, what's being called all in between that, you know? Alright, well, let's see. Okay, well, there's only two voids. Two voids that are being called in between here. And those two voids are the onActivityResult void and then the setBitmap void. Where are these two voids located inside the physical app? Okay, so where are those two voids at and how are they ran? Okay, well, let's see that. The first one is onActivityResume. Of course, we know is in the Paint Java. Here's the void here. Okay, and then after that, that void calls setBitmap, which is in your drawingview.java. Those are the only two voids that are ran, which make the gallery image go to the screen for the user. Okay? So onActivityResume. So what would I do first? A diagnostic. Turn these two guys off. Run the app, right? Touch the image. Bam. And then nothing should happen. Nothing should show up on the screen. But you should be back in the app. You should be able to use it. It shouldn't crash because these guys were never ran. How do we stop these guys from running? What I do is go to Paint, go to that first one. From here on down is all the code that runs. I turn it off. Just turn it off. So do this here. And down to here. Okay. Save that. Now that all of the logic is off, it's just calling this void, this method here, it just calls it. Nothing happens, right? It just calls it. Alright, so how come I don't turn this off? Well, this calls that method, right? So why do we need to turn him off? He's never ran because he's never ran. We don't need to turn that off. We can still. How will we do that? We'll go here. Here's all the stuff he does. He doesn't do as much as the other one, right? And we turn it off. Now again, we don't have to turn it off because it's never ran. Now what I would do from here is go ahead and run the app. Did it crash? Did it not crash? Nothing happened. That's a good thing. But it didn't crash. You know, hit play, run the app now with just all this turned off. It didn't crash. Good. Now we know that this code isn't the issue. Now we know it's not up here somewhere. Some crazy thing happening. We know it's with just our doing this to here, to here, to here. You know, run your app, click the image, and none of this should happen. None of that should happen. It should take you back to the app. You shouldn't crash. Okay, awesome. We started from a good point. Now we know there's no issue with that part. If it is, there's something going wrong with your app. You know, maybe you imported the, what do you call that? The Android manifest in wrong, or maybe there's something else going wrong. If you turn this off and the app still crashes, there is a different issue going on here. All right. Now, let's go ahead and turn it back on. So, since we're, let's see, right here. All right, now it's back on. Now, let's find the code in here that runs this. Let me show you what happens inside of this void and how we get to this point. And I made a diagram for that as well. Please don't mind the graphics. Okay. So basically, and there's a lot more to it than this, but basically, all we run are these methods here to get to this method there. We run a void called the bitmap factory. Then we run a void called size for memory void. Then we run a void called set drawing bitmap view. Okay, so the reason why this is in yellow is because this is this void, right? Like, calling this is what calls this. So, for example, in our example app we had here, this line here is physically this void here, right? This line here is this void being called there. Okay. So I broke it down just to these simple voids because everything else, if there's an issue with that, we can't fix it, right? I mean, either A, it's a piece of technology that I'm not familiar with, or B, see how we got the on activity result and we know everything that happens inside of there? There's other methods that's run that we can't get inside of because it's Android. You know what I mean? It's Google created it. I can't go in there. For example, the first line of code that is ran, and what I'm trying to do is get you to break it down to exactly which line is causing the issue, so we can see what's wrong. So the first lines of code is this one here. We can turn everything off and just turn this one on. I wouldn't do that. We couldn't fix that if this was the issue. This is a Java, this is an Android method URI. If it's broken, we can fix it, but let's not. Android shouldn't have any problems with their own code, right? If there is, there's something wrong with your emulator or something wrong with your build or something like that. But let's just skip it. Let's let these guys run. Nothing really that we can do here or here. Of course, we may be stuffing the wrong variables in there, but let's just stick with these guys' work, okay? The first line of code that I believe may be causing the issue is this one. This is the bitmap factory that I spoke of in the diagram. That's this line here. So what I would do is turn this guy off and everybody underneath him as well. So let's do this and this all the way down to here. Because what's happening is that this is all the if it equals 3, which is the import, run all this code, right? Again, in the beginning we turned off everything just to make sure, but we're importing the app, so let's turn that off. Okay. Now run the code just to make sure all this is working. It's working. It didn't do anything, but it didn't crash. That's what we're looking for. Run it. Can you go to your import, touch the image, touch the image. Nothing comes on the screen, but the app didn't crash. Awesome. Okay. Now go ahead and turn that back on and turn everything off. Alright, so what is this doing? This is actually getting the image, right? Here's the image. Like, we wouldn't got it from the SD card or whatever. Here it is, right here. You can take this, and so run this and test it and see if it works. If it works, we got the image successfully, right? We got the image. At this point, you can take this and take your image view, take your XML, make an image view. Where's the XML? I hate to do this on camera, but take the layout. Here we go, layout. Where's your main layout? Activity main. Here. Take your main layout, make a freaking drawing view, and then set the drawing view to this image, and then boom, the image should be there. I mean, that's the image. So there's a drawing view, and let me get a layout, image view. Here we go. Just throw it in there somewhere. I don't know, right there. And then, I don't know. I guess put that image in there for now. Right? And then let's name this in the XML. Let me double click this. There it is. And let's call it image view 1. That's good. Right? And then we can do, I like the copy and paste thing. So this is an image view, right? So we take that image view. Dot. No, image view equals IM. I just call it whatever. And then, image view, the name of it is IM, and it equals image view, right? Something like this. and then it's find, F-I-N-D, find view, V-I-E-W, by ID. Is that right? Then we close that off, and then all we want to do, what do we do? Oh, I have to save this first. See, it has a star up here. I have to save this first before I can ask for this name here. Okay, then I go to resources.ids. It should be the name of the image view. I think it was image view 1. Yeah. Awesome. And then all I do is set this image view to that bitmap, right? This is a cool way to diagnose a set image view. Set. What am I doing? Set bitmap. There we go. Yeah, set bitmap. Okay. And now take this and put the image in there. So what I did was, we already got the image. It worked successfully. Show it to the user. You know, forget all this extra googly gop and drawing on it and all that. You know, I took our layout. Here, let's look at it graphically. And I put this in here. What I would do is put this in there first and then just run the code. Let's turn all this off. Hold on. Here, let's just turn these guys off. Turn these guys off. You can even turn this guy. It don't matter, right? And just run it and make sure it doesn't crash. Because just having this image here floating in midair may make the XML crash on your screen on the phone, you know. But if that works and the image is there or whatever, just do this, you know. And this proves that we wouldn't grab the image works, everything was successful, right? Bam. If you get a crash up in this area without this code, right? Forget about my image vanilla, but if you get a crash right here when you turn this back on, then there's an issue with that image that we got. We need to figure out another way to decode it. Maybe on your device it's a GIF. Maybe we can't decode GIFs. Maybe it's a high-res JPEG or something. I don't know. But if this works, we got the image perfectly. Amen, right? We got the image. Okay. Now that we got the image, we know it works. We actually did this stupid little test here to show the image to our screen so we can prove we decoded it right or whatever. Let's undo everything here. And I saved that as well, so that way now we got an error because that image view that resource ID doesn't exist. Okay, so alright, now we know that we got the image just fine. You can turn on this code. You actually deleted it. It was just for my test purposes. Now, if we look at my diagram, size for image, that's this next line here. That's this line here. Size for image, right? So let's turn everyone else off. Right? And let's run the app, see if the app works. We can't see anything, but the app is running, right? This resizes the image to a usable size to draw onto, right? If you run this and this is where the error is, let me know, and then we can fix this algorithm, right? This is my little algorithm I invented for this. Because what this does is take the original image and resize it to our new image that we like. Okay, so now we know that this works, and even here, let me redo everything I was doing. Where's that at? Can I undo? Yeah, cool, awesome. Look at this. We can make this again, and then where we did all this here, let me cut that out, undo all of this, turn everything off here, and oops, I want to keep this on. See if our resized image works. Okay. Alright, so I'm pretending we had this image view still in that resources, in that resource ID. Alright, so now we take this, and don't forget to put this here. So we put that image in there. And now try to run this, and it should show your imported image at a new resolution to the user, to the screen. Awesome. That works. Okay. We're getting closer and closer to finding out what the issue is now. Now we run some code here. This is all googly gop, whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay. And then we get down to this line here, which is the last line. And this line is this. Okay? Alright, so I'm not gonna not run anything anymore. We can turn this off and just make sure everything runs, right? Run the app, everything works. So that means that this entire method or void is working properly. It's this guy that's the issue now, because he's never called. He is the one that actually calls him. They are each other, right? So all these guys ran, plus the little extra functions that were inside of there. They ran just fine. All right, so now let's turn him back on. Save it. And forget about all this. Let's go here now. This should be a little easier to diagnose. There's only a couple of lines of work. Go ahead and turn off. Oh, let me show you what happens in there. What happens here is easy. Just this. Get corrected image bitmap. That's this void here. And then set bitmap to canvas. That's when we show it to the user. Those two simple methods are called there. And where are they at physically here? Well, it's not this one. It's not this one. We turn those off. This next one is this. Next one is this method here. Oh, you can't really tell it right there. That's that one there. Okay, so go ahead and let's turn everything off. Turn everything off there. Okay, now everything is off up until that point when we run this, right? Go ahead and run the code. Of course, we shouldn't see the image on the screen yet, but the app shouldn't crash. I believe this is probably where your crash is going to happen. When you run this algorithm is going to make your app crash. And where is this at? That's down here. So it's an issue somewhere in here that's going wrong. But run this, see if it works. Now, if it doesn't work, if this is where your crash is out at, you can bypass this by turning it off, turning everybody else back on, and then we should. This still isn't going to work. You have to do. So this is where we set the MPaint bitmap to the canvas, right? This is how we draw it on the screen for the user to see it. But if we just did this and turn this off, we still wouldn't see anything because I recycled it. I erased it out. And right here, I'm resetting it to a new image. And then I put it in here. If we turn it off, it's just going to be a blank thing. And then you set in blankness inside of there. So what you can do is, if you want to bypass this method, is go like this. And then say it equals. And it's going to equal the bitmap that we brought over. Here, oops, shit. Alright, copy. And it equals bit. That's the one we brought over. Imagine when we did this here, and we did the number 1, number 2, then we brought it down here, the end number. Say we wanted number 2, right? The one we brought over is here. And then we can manipulate it like that. So the image that we brought over from the other method that we use over there in the Paint job or whatever is called bit. And so all I'm doing now is just setting this in Paint to bit, not getting orientation, not setting it, whatever. Oh, I forgot about this method too. This may be, ooh, let's back up. I didn't think about that. Wait a minute. See, there's more to this code than I remember. Oh my gosh. Okay, this may be where some of your issues is. Alright, so let's turn everything back off again. Ooh, I'm so sorry. Hold on. Okay. So, let's start over here. Shoobity-boo-bop. Bam. Alright, so your issue may be here. Rotation. I'm resizing it for the size of the physical screen for the user. I forgot about that. So I take the image that came in, and here it is here, right? It comes in as a regular, whatever, 267 by 743, whatever. And I'm resizing the shape of it to the shape of the screen. What is the shape of the screen? It's called imported width and imported height. I measure the height of the screen and width of the screen when the app first starts, and I save that in somewhere or whatever, and then whenever I need it later for setting the bitmap, I use that screen of the instead of measuring the screen size, width, and height on the fly. Right when I don't want to. I was caught in the issue where when this void was run, when he's run, the normal thing was when I'm run, he says, "Hey, what's the screen height and width?" And then we had numbers up set up for that, and then we rotated the image or set the image's size based off of the measured screen height and width I just measured at this time. That was causing issues because the screen, when this was called, it was measuring the screen at the wrong dimensions as if it was rotated. Because when I went to import the image, it rotated the screen physically. This is on a real device. I probably won't even have it on the emulator. I was rotating the screen, and it was crashing because it measured the screen height, but then when it tried to draw it at that height, it's like, your screen isn't 640 by 480. It's 480 by 640. So, and instead of just switching them back and forth like an idiot, when we first start the app, measure the screen, I save that measurement, and if I ever needed it, it's called imported height and width, right? You can test this and see if it crashes. It may just crash here. Go ahead and put your own numbers in. Put your own height and width. Make sure it's not bigger than your physical screen. Let's do 100 by 100, Do 100 by 100 or 20 by 20. It'd be small, but at least that's not the issue. And now run the app like this. It doesn't crash. Cool. Then turn everybody back on, and you may see the image work. It may come on the screen at 20 by 20, like in the corner here, but it works. Then we know there's something wrong with measuring the screen there. I had that issue, I remember, constantly. Okay, but you run that, and nothing bad happens, so then you continue on like I said. At that point, if you turn everything, nothing crashed, and you turn everything back on, and just doing this makes the app crash. Now we have to work backwards. Maybe it was, when we got the rotation, it was cool, right, at 440 by 680. But putting that 440 by 680 image in the screen made the app crash, right? You know what I mean? So now we got to work backwards. And what you can do to do that is you can really bypass almost all of this code, like physically, and just get that image that we had got and show it to the user. Bam. Here's the image that we brought over. Show it to the user. Forget all that re-rendering and all that stuff. See if that works. If that does work, then there's more issues. And again, give me your code, and that way I can diagnose it some more. But these are some basic diagnostic tools that you can use for any app. Figure out the chain reaction that happens that makes that possible. Try to get your mind out of, well, could it be this part of the code or this part of the code? These have nothing to do with showing the imported image. So, of course, this ain't got nothing to do with it, right? Figure out your chain of command of what happens, and then figure out how to fix it, from there. That's how I get all my, demo code or whatever, All right, let me know if this helps you figure out exactly which line is causing the issue or which couple of lines or whatever, and then get back with me.